Hi, welcome to my video on the system of linear equations, two variables, and solved by the substitution method, part one. Remember, if you recall, if you looked at my videos, we solved by graphing, we solved by elimination. Now we're going to do the substitution method. It's just another method to solve a system of equations. And I'm going to give you some steps to go through, or some skills to learn before I really solve a whole system. So here we go. Step one, solve the equation so that the variables have a numerical coefficient of 1. When a numerical coefficient of 1, then it's easy to deal with. So here we go. Examples, which equation and what variable has a numerical coefficient of 1? So equation 1, let's check. Oh, there's a 1. So the equation is number 1, and has a coefficient of 1 is the x. Notice the coefficient, numerical coefficient is 2 here, 3 here, and 6 here. So this is the equation, and is x. The second one, the numerical coefficient of 1. Negative 7, no. 5, no. 13, no. Yes, y. So it's number 2 equation, number 2. And it's the x that got, oops, sorry, my mistake. It's the y that got the numerical coefficient of 1, because there's a 1 there. And I just go back to here, there's a 1 there. So this is number 2 and y. Practice. Which equation and what variable has a numerical coefficient of 1? Practice means pause the videos and see if you get your answer right. And press play. So equation 1 has 5. And there's the 1, so it's equation 1, and it's for y. Y has a numerical coefficient of 1. That's a negative 4, that's a negative 9, nope. Number 2, equation 1 has that's a negative 1, nope, we want a 1. So it's equation 2, and it's the x. It's the x that got 1, not negative 1, we want a 1. And we have to remember, when solving, avoid fractions if possible. You're going to see what I mean as we keep going through this system. We avoid fractions if possible. Examples, which equation and what variable can be solved easily so that the numerical coefficients are not fractions? So if I wanted to solve these equations here, which one would I solve for so there's no fractions? So if I solve this for x, notice that 2 divides into 6 and into 4. So I would say, that's equation 1, and that's equation 2. I would say number 1, and I would solve it for x. Notice 2 goes into 6 3 times, 2 goes into 4. Notice you got to pick your smallest number, because the smallest number will divide into the other ones. In other words, 6 and 4 are multiples of 2. B, pick the smallest number to see if it will divide into the rest. The smallest number here is, this is equation 1, better do that. So I have a 5. A 5 will divide into 15, and a 5 divide into 10, not giving you a fraction. So again, it's number 1, and it's 4. And this is number 1 when we solve it for x. And this is number 1 when we solve it for y. Notice if I divide by 9, 9 will go into 9 once, but it won't go into 6 because it'll be a fraction. C, which equation? This is number 1. And it takes a while just to get used to writing down 1 and 2. It just helps to identify. And this one, what number? Well, the smallest number is 3. Will 3 go into 12? Yes. And the 6? Yes. So I have number 1 and x. So if I solve this equation for x, you will not get a fraction. And if you solve this equation for x, 4 won't go into 2. 2 will go into 4, but 2 won't go into 3. So 2 is, I'll give you a fraction. D, that's number 1. That's number 2. And 14 won't go into 7. 7 will go into 14 twice. 7 will go into 35. So the smallest number here is 7. So you check the 7, the smallest number you check. So the first equation, yes, and it would be to solve it for y, because 7 goes into 14 twice, negative 2, 7 goes into 35, 5. And also, you could also say, you could pick number 2 also. Why? Because 11 is the smallest number, and 11 goes into 22 twice, and 11 goes into 44 4 times. So you could either pick number 1 for y or number 2 for x, your choice. It's an or, either or. You don't have to do both, but you could do either or. Let's continue. We're solving by substitution, and I'm trying to develop a pattern and to explain it so it'll make it easy. Solve by the substitution method. Practice. Which equation and for what variable can you solve easily so that the numerical coefficients are not fractions? Remember, we try not to have fractions, but if we got to, then we'll deal with it. Number 1, which equation? Oh, let's put a 2 here. Smallest number is 3. 3 will go into 15 and go into 12. So if you solve this for y, you won't get a fraction. So number 1, and it's for y. 8 will go into 8, but it won't go into 5. Number 2, 5 can't go into 14. 14 can't go into 5. Smallest number here is 9. 9 goes into 18, yes, twice. 9 goes into 9 once. So this one is number 2, and it's an x. 9 goes into 18, 9 goes into 9, but you can't do it for 18. Number 3, we have the smallest numbers of 4. 4 goes into 4, 4 goes into 12. So number 1 for x. Or you could go number 1 for y, because there's 2 4s. But you can't do number 2, because 2 will go into 6, but not into 7. Smallest number is 2. So 2 will go into 6 3 times, but it won't go into 7 unless you get 7 over 2. So 2 answers, either or here. 14. Pick the smallest number. 6 will go into 12, but it won't go into 10. 12 won't go into 6 unless you get a fraction. Number 2, the smallest number is 10. And 10 divides into 20 twice, into 20 twice, or it's a negative, but I'm just worrying about 10. So it's number 2, and you solve it for y. You won't get any fractions. So I'm trying to develop a pattern, a skill, so you'll be able to work your problems easy. You'll follow what I'm trying to show you. Examples. Let's do some more. Solve each so that no numerical coefficients are fractions. We try to avoid getting a fraction because a lot of students don't like fractions. Again, if you gotta have fractions, well, we'll deal with them, but that comes later. A. Well, I want to solve this one so we got a numerical coefficient of no fraction. So that's a 1 there. So if I solve this one for y, the x moves over, become negative, I have no fractions. And again, B, I have a 1 coefficient, perfect. So I will solve this one for x. So x equals negative 4y becomes 4y, plus 2 becomes minus 2. So solving this for y, I got a 1 coefficient. Solving this one for x, I have a 1 coefficient. When there's a 1 coefficient, that's the variable you want to solve for. Now, I don't have a 1 coefficient, but the next best, 3 goes into 6 and into 15. So I'm going to solve this one for x. So 3x equals 6y plus 15. And then I divide by 3, because 3 will go into 6 and 15. The smallest number is 3. So 3 will go into both of them. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2y. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And in D, smallest number is 5. So 5 goes into 25. Yes, 5 goes into 20. So I'll solve this one for y. So negative 5y equals 25x minus 20. Notice, if you're solving it for x, then y goes right here. It's like a y equals mx plus b, only as x equals something mx, my plus b. So we're solving for y, which is natural. When we solve for y, we put the y first, and then the x, and then the number. But if we're solving for x, the y goes, and then the constant. So we divide by negative 5. They cancel to give us 1. That's a 1. 25 divided by negative 5 is negative 5x. Negative 20 divided by negative 5 is plus 4. Notice we have a 1 coefficient on the x and the y, either or. We want a 1 coefficient if we can get it. You'll see what I mean as we move through the videos. E, I want to solve to have a 1 coefficient. Well, that's a 1 coefficient there, so I'll solve this one for y. Y equals negative 7x plus 4. Moved over, positive becomes a negative. And that's a negative 1, so I'll divide by negative 1. So y equals 7x minus 4. What a lot of people do right here, they got a negative y, they'll just multiply by negative 1. They'll change all the signs. I like to divide by negative 1 or multiply by negative 1, your choice. Because that's a negative y, then we're changing all the signs. We're multiplying it by negative 1 or dividing by negative 1. F, we want a 1 coefficient. So that's one of the, I got two y's here. So this is 6y equals 0. And so y equals, divide by 6, and I get y equals 0. So you won't get any fractions. You get an answer. This one comes out to be y equals 0. Sometimes that happens. You could have two variables. If that was an x, then you would solve this one for. So let's pretend for a second that this is 5y plus x equals 0. Instead of that y being a y so we can add, let's pretend that this y is an x. So now we have x equals negative 5y. Plus is 0, but really negative 5y, the plus is 0 is not necessary. So this is the equation solved for when we have a coefficient of 1. G, if we have fractions, so what I would do here, the LCD is 2. So I multiply this fraction, multiply this equation by 2. So that means you're going to multiply 2 by 4x, 2 by a half y, and 2 by 3. So 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times a half, the 2's cancel, you get 1. 2 times 3 is 6. So what I did, I eliminated the fraction first to make it easier to deal with. If you eliminate your fraction by multiplying the equation by the LCD, you have no fraction. Now you can solve it. Y equals negative 8x plus 6. Eliminate the fraction and then solve it. You'll find it. There'll be less trouble. H, I got a double brackets, so we'll get rid of the brackets first. So 2 times 6, 12x. 2 times negative 3, negative 6. Negative 6 times y, negative 6y. Negative 6 times negative 2, 12. Now, we want to solve it. So let's write it as 12x plus 6y equals 12 plus 6. So 12x plus 6y equals 18. So I moved the x, I moved it into the ax plus by equals c. So I moved the x first, then the y, and then the constants. And now it's simplified. So I want to solve this for y. Because 6 goes into 12 and 18. So 6y equals negative 12x plus 18. Divide by 6. And 6 divided by 6 is 1. Negative 12 divided by 6 is negative 2x. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So remove the brackets and line up the equation and then solve. Makes it easier to do. Be consistent. And I showed you what to do. Now you got 8 to do on your own. So if you want, pause the video and work these out. Solve each so that the numerical coefficients, there's no numerical coefficient. No numerical coefficients of fractions. Trying to read this out correctly. Here we go. No fractions. So I'm going to solve this one for y. Y equals negative 9x plus a 7. There's a 1 right here. I'm going to solve this one for y. So negative y equals 8x minus 3. and we divide by, that's a negative, we multiply by -1 or divide by -1. Either or. Dividing by -1, y equals -8x plus 3. That's it, -8. And we want to know fractions, so 4 goes into 12 and 28, so we'll solve this one for y. So the 12x goes over, and the 28 stays, so positive becomes negative, and that stays. We divide by -4. -4 divided by -4 is 1. -12 divided by -4 is 3. And 28 divided by -4 is -7. So again, the coefficient, the variable has a 1 coefficient, which is what we're looking for. Unless it's impossible, then we got to go with a fraction. So here, 11x plus y equals 0, so 1 coefficient is with the y, so y equals a -11x plus a 0, but that's the same as a -11x. The 0 is not necessary, unless you were graphing. If you were graphing this, the slope would be a -11, and there's no number here, so that's understood to be 0, so the y-intercept would be 0. But we're only solving the equation so that we got a 1 coefficient, so y equals -11x. We want a 1 coefficient, so the 1 is right there, so we go -11x equals 2y minus 5. Again, divide by -1. And that becomes x, that becomes -2y, and that becomes plus 5. We want a 1 coefficient, if you can get it. And which number goes into all the others? 8 is the smallest coefficient of the x and the y, so we'll solve for x. 8x equals -16y plus 8. Divide by 8. Divide by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1. -16 divided by 8 is 2, and that's a y. And 8 divided by 8 is 1. And we got some fractions. Now, when we have fractions, let's get the LCD. LCD for 3 and 3 is 3. So I'm going to multiply the equation by 3. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply each part. I'm going to multiply each part of the equation by 3. So I took, yes, you can put 3 outside the bracket. In your head, if you want to go 3 times 1/3, 3 times -4 over 3, 3 times 2, good. You don't have to do this. I'm only writing this down to make sure. 3 times each one of these. 3 times 1/3, you cancel, I get an x. 3 into -3 is -1, that's a -4y. And 3 times 2 is 6. And I want a 1 coefficient, so x is equal to 4y plus 6. I want a 1 coefficient for my variable. And we got 2 fractions equal. Again, this is what? A over b equals c over d. I'll do this one 2 ways. So if you have this 2 fractions equal, you go a times d equals b times c. So that means we're going to take 2 and multiply by x minus 4. And we're going to take the 6 and multiply by 3y minus 4. So you cross multiply. So 2 times x minus 4 equals 6 times 3y minus 4. Notice I multiply with the 2 first because I put the monomial in front of the bracket. So 2 times x, 2 times -4, 6 times 3y, 6 times -4, and 2x minus 18y equals -24 plus 8. 2x minus 18y equals, and you add that, and you get a minus 16. And we're solving for x because the 2 divides into 18 and 16. But we do not want any fractions if we can avoid it. So x equals 9y minus 8. So notice I cross multiplied and I worked the equation down to solve it for x yx, because I wanted the one coefficient, because 2 goes into 18 and 16. Just while I think about that, watch this. We got two fractions equal. With two fractions equal, I can cross multiply numbers. 2 times x minus 4 equals 6 times it. But if I want, I could pick up the LCD called 6 and 2. The LCD is 6. I can multiply the equation by 6. So that means 6 times x minus 4 over 6, and 6 times 3y minus 4 over 2. So multiplying the equation by 6 balances 6 times each one. But notice when you multiply 6 by each one, you get 6, and the 6 goes once, so 1 times, so that gives you 1. I'm just doing this now. 2 goes into 6 3 times, so that gives you that. Notice that this will be the same when you work it out as this. It's like you're cross multiplying. But if I multiply them, x minus 4, 9y minus 12, x equals 9y minus 12 plus 4. There's a 12. So x equals 9y minus 8. So you could multiply both sides of the equation by 6, and they cancel, fractions cancel out, but it still works out to be the same answer when you solve it for x to have a coefficient of 1. But if cross multiply makes it, so I did it two ways, by cross multiply, 2 times x minus 4, 6 times that, or multiply both sides by the LCD. So either or, but most people would cross multiply. And that brings us to the end of the first section, first part on solving by the substitution method. Just getting you ready to solve by substitution. And if you like my video, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, because there's more videos coming your way. And visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content that's on my YouTube channel, Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.